A silent revolution is unfolding in the world's second-largest economy. Foreign luxury brands that once ruled China's shopping malls are now watching their grip loosen. The reason? A new generation has decided that made in China is no longer something to hide, it's something to celebrate. And what comes next could reshape global commerce as we know it. Something remarkable is happening in China right now, and it's not making headlines the way you'd expect. Walk into a high-end shopping district in Shanghai, Beijing, or Shenzhen today, and you'll notice something different. The crowds that once lined up outside European fashion boutiques are thinner. The shopping bags bearing iconic foreign logos? Fewer. Meanwhile, stores showcasing homegrown Chinese brands are thriving. This isn't a temporary blip. It's a full-scale cultural awakening. For decades, international brands enjoyed an almost mythical status in China. Owning a Louis Vuitton bag or driving a German sedan wasn't just about quality, it was about identity. It signaled that you had arrived, that you were cosmopolitan, successful, modern. But that narrative is crumbling. Today, Chinese consumers, especially those under 40, are making a bold statement with their wallets. They're choosing local over global, heritage over hype, authenticity over aspiration, and the numbers tell the story. Domestic brands across nearly every sector, fashion, cosmetics, electronics, automobiles, are gaining ground at a pace that has caught even industry analysts off guard. What was once dismissed as patriotic posturing has evolved into something far more profound, a genuine shift in consumer confidence. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It's the result of economic evolution, technological progress, and a generational mindset shift that challenges long-held assumptions about what defines prestige, quality, and cultural relevance. So what's driving this change? And what does it mean for the future of global brands operating in the world's most critical consumer market? Let's dig deeper. To understand what's happening now, we need to rewind about 15 years. In the early 2010s, China was still emerging from decades of rapid industrialization. The economy was booming, but cultural identity was more complicated. Many consumers looked outward for inspiration. Western brands represented modernity, sophistication, and success. Chinese products, by contrast, were often seen as cheaper imitations. Functional maybe, but rarely aspirational. Fast forward to today, and that perception has flipped. China is now a global powerhouse. It's a leader in digital innovation, artificial intelligence, green energy, and infrastructure development. Its cities are modern marvels. Its technology rivals, and in some cases surpasses, that of Silicon Valley. And perhaps most importantly, its people are feeling the weight of that transformation. This isn't just economic pride, it's cultural pride. Young Chinese consumers today grew up in a vastly different environment than their parents. They didn't experience scarcity. They didn't grow up idolizing the West as the ultimate benchmark of success. Instead, they came of age in a China that launched its own space station, built the world's fastest trains, and became a trendsetter in mobile payments and e-commerce. They see their country not as a follower, but as a pioneer. And that shift in perception is reshaping everything, from music and fashion to food and technology. Millennials and Gen Z are leading the charge. They're digging into Chinese history, art, and philosophy, not out of obligation, but out of genuine curiosity and pride. They're blending ancient aesthetics with modern design. Traditional calligraphy appears on sneakers. Hanfu-inspired silhouettes show up on runways. Folklore and mythology are reimagined in video games and graphic novels. This isn't nostalgia, it's reinvention. And brands are taking notice. Companies that embed Chinese cultural elements into their products, whether through design, storytelling, or symbolism, are winning. Those that ignore this shift, they're being left behind. Let's talk about luxury, because that's where the transformation is most visible. For years, China was the golden goose for European luxury houses. Brands like Gucci, Chanel, and Hermès saw explosive growth as China's middle and upper classes expanded. Luxury wasn't just desirable, it was essential. Owning a Birkin bag or a Rolex wasn't about function, it was about status. But something has changed. Recent earnings reports from major international luxury brands reveal a troubling trend. China sales are cooling. Growth rates that once soared into double digits have slowed dramatically. Some brands are even reporting declines. Meanwhile, Chinese luxury brands are surging. Take jewelry, for example. Domestic players like Chow Tai Fook and Lao Feng Xiang have seen revenue climb sharply, outpacing foreign competitors in key markets. These aren't small regional players. They're billion-dollar enterprises with sophisticated branding, premium retail experiences, and products that resonate deeply with local buyers. Why? Because they're telling stories that matter. A Chinese jewelry brand doesn't just sell a gold bracelet. It connects that bracelet to centuries of tradition, dragon motifs symbolizing power, phoenix patterns representing grace. Every design carries meaning. Every purchase feels personal. Foreign luxury brands, by contrast, often rely on heritage that feels distant. A French fashion house may boast centuries of craftsmanship, but to a young consumer in Chengdu, that history doesn't resonate the way a design rooted in their own culture does. The same pattern is playing out in cosmetics. Brands like Florasis and Perfect Diary have exploded in popularity by combining high-quality formulations with packaging and marketing that celebrates Chinese beauty ideals and aesthetics. They're not trying to look European. They're proudly, unapologetically Chinese, and consumers are responding. On Singles' Day, China's biggest shopping event, domestic beauty brands consistently rank among the top sellers, often outperforming international giants that once dominated the category. This isn't about price. Many of these Chinese brands are positioned as premium products with price tags that rival or exceed foreign competitors. Consumers aren't choosing them because they're cheaper. They're choosing them because they feel seen. If luxury shows the cultural shift, the automotive industry reveals the technological one. China's rise in electric vehicles is nothing short of extraordinary. Just a decade ago, Chinese car brands were widely dismissed in global markets. They were considered low quality, unimaginative, and honestly, far behind established automakers from Germany, Japan, and the United States. But today, they're leading the EV revolution. Companies like BYD, NIO, and XPeng aren't just competing with Tesla, they're outselling it in certain segments. BYD, for instance, recently surpassed Tesla as the world's top-selling EV manufacturer. Let that sink in for a moment. A Chinese company is now the global leader in one of the most strategically important industries of the 21st century. And here's the kicker. Chinese consumers are driving that success. In China's premium EV market, domestic brands now command a significant share. Buyers who once would have automatically chosen a BMW or Mercedes are now opting for a NIO ES8 or a Li Auto L9. These aren't budget alternatives. They're high-tech, beautifully designed vehicles that offer cutting-edge features, intelligent cockpits, autonomous driving capabilities, battery-swapping infrastructure that foreign brands are still trying to catch up with. The perception has shifted. Chinese EVs are no longer seen as knockoffs. They're seen as innovators. And this transformation is being fueled by more than just national pride. It's being driven by genuine technological superiority in key areas. China leads the world in battery production, charging infrastructure, and EV supply chains. Domestic automakers have leveraged that advantage to deliver products that are competitive on every level: design, performance, technology, and price. Foreign automakers are scrambling to adapt. Some are partnering with Chinese firms. Others are pouring billions into local R&D centers. But the momentum has shifted. The home team has the advantage now. Fashion is where cultural identity meets daily life. And in China, fashion is undergoing a transformation that mirrors the broader consumer shift. Chinese apparel brands now control a massive portion of the domestic clothing market, far larger than foreign competitors. Brands like JNBY, Bosideng, and Anta have grown from regional players into national powerhouses with international ambitions. Bosideng, for example, started as a down jacket manufacturer. Today, it's a global fashion brand that has collaborated with major designers and shown collections at London Fashion Week. Its jackets are worn by celebrities and fashion influencers worldwide. Anta, originally a sportswear company, acquired international brands like Fila and Arc'teryx. It's now one of the largest sportswear companies globally, and it's doing it by blending performance with cultural storytelling. But the real story is happening with smaller, design-led Chinese brands that are tapping into something deeper. These brands aren't trying to look Western. They're embracing Chinese aesthetics, flowing silhouettes inspired by traditional garments, embroidery techniques passed down through generations, color palettes drawn from classical paintings, and they're doing it in a way that feels modern, not costume-like. Young consumers are drawn to these designs because they offer something foreign brands can't: a sense of belonging, a connection to heritage, a way to express identity that feels authentic. Foreign fashion brands still perform well in certain categories, especially sportswear giants like Nike and Adidas. But even they've had to adapt. Nike's most successful recent campaigns in China have featured Chinese athletes, Chinese designers, and culturally relevant storytelling. The days of simply transplanting a global campaign into the Chinese market are over. Consumers expect localization, they expect respect, and they expect brands to understand what matters to them. At the heart of this transformation is a cultural phenomenon known as Guochao, literally, national tide. Guochao is more than a trend, it's a movement. It celebrates Chinese culture, design, and creativity in contemporary contexts. It's about taking pride in what's homegrown and making it cool. The movement gained momentum around 2018 when Chinese sportswear brand Li-Ning showcased a collection at New York Fashion Week that featured bold Chinese characters, retro designs, and patriotic themes. The collection went viral. Young Chinese consumers flooded social media with praise. Suddenly, wearing a Chinese brand wasn't just acceptable, it was aspirational. Since then, Guochao has exploded across industries. Cosmetics brands use packaging inspired by imperial palaces. Beverage companies release flavors tied to regional Chinese ingredients. Tech companies design products with cultural motifs. Even fast food chains have jumped on board, creating limited edition items tied to traditional festivals. Guochao isn't government mandated or corporate manufactured. It's organic. It's driven by consumers who want to see their culture reflected in the products they buy. And it's working because it taps into something real, a generation that feels confident enough to define its own standards of cool. Cultural pride alone wouldn't be enough if the products weren't up to par. But here's the thing, they are. Chinese brands have made enormous strides in quality, innovation, and design over the past 2 decades. What was once a legitimate concern, that Chinese products were inferior, no longer holds true in most categories. In smartphones, brands like Huawei, Xiaomi, and Oppo produce devices that rival or even exceed the performance of Apple and Samsung. In home appliances, companies like Haier and Midea are global leaders. In fashion, Chinese manufacturers have mastered the same techniques and materials used by European luxury houses. This quality leap didn't happen by accident. It's the result of massive investments in research and development, partnerships with top designers and engineers, and a relentless focus on innovation. Consumers are noticing. The perception gap, the idea that foreign equals better, has narrowed dramatically. And once that gap closes, the advantage shifts to brands that offer cultural relevance in addition to quality. That's where Chinese brands are winning. Let's talk money, because economics plays a role here too. China's economy has matured. Growth has stabilized. The era of explosive double-digit expansion is over. In its place is a more cautious, value-conscious consumer base. This doesn't mean people aren't spending. It means they're spending smarter. They're asking harder questions. Is this product worth the price? Does it offer real value? Or am I just paying for a logo? Does it align with my values and identity? Domestic brands often win this calculation. They offer competitive pricing without sacrificing design or functionality. For a young professional in Beijing or Guangzhou facing rising housing costs and economic uncertainty, a Chinese brand that delivers quality at a fair price is an easy choice. Foreign brands, especially luxury ones, are feeling the squeeze. Conspicuous consumption, buying things simply to show off wealth, is declining as a social norm. Today's consumers want meaning, not just status. So where does all of this lead? What we're witnessing in China isn't just a consumer trend. It's a redefinition of what value means. For decades, the global economy operated on a simple assumption. Western brands set the standard, and the rest of the world followed. China was the factory, the West was the tastemaker. That dynamic is breaking down. Chinese consumers are no longer content to be followers. They're defining their own standards of beauty, quality, and prestige. They're building their own icons. And in doing so, they're sending a message to the rest of the world: we don't need your validation anymore. This transformation will have ripple effects far beyond China. As Chinese brands grow stronger domestically, they're expanding internationally. They're competing in Europe, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. They're reshaping global supply chains and challenging established players on their home turf. For international brands, the lesson is clear: adapt or fade. Cultural intelligence is no longer optional. Understanding local identity, respecting local aesthetics, and building genuine connections with consumers will determine success. The age of automatic deference to foreign brands is over. What's emerging is a multipolar world of commerce, one where confidence is no longer measured by how well you imitate the West, but by how authentically you express who you are. China's younger generation is leading that charge. They're weaving the past into the future. They're proving that tradition and innovation aren't opposites. They're partners. And as they redefine what it means to be modern, confident, and successful, they're showing the world that the next era of global culture won't be written in Paris, Milan, or New York alone. It will be written everywhere, by everyone, on their own terms. The brands that understand this will thrive. The ones that don't will become relics. And as for China, it's no longer looking outward for approval. It's looking inward and finding everything it needs: